Sorry. Experimenting with settings. We'll see how that goes. So I wanted to give you a little heads up on the sort of thing my adopted Gwantch father told me about when I asked questions about the Deer Society he belonged to. He said he joined it when he was very young. I think he said he was 3 when his parents took him to go learn how to hunt and to get an education outside of their home. Because that is also an option with some of these societies and some of the indigenous tribal people, especially the Thunderbird tribes. They will do a lot of evening cosmic. How you doing? They'll do a lot of lending children for educational purposes or taking them in to teach them shamanism or herbalism and etc. So some of the things that he described was the meditation huts, the little huts with the holes in the top of them. They start, that's part of their very first training is to be under those little huts, even during rainy times, like I previously said, for the water to drip on them, improve their concentration, set their mind towards meditation and no disturbance to their pond, so to speak. No ripples, nobody throwing a pebble in your pond. So that's the first step of their training. Then they go into learning the jungle gym stuff. They learn to climb the slanted trees. They learn to climb trees that are more upright. And the upright trees will have a little hook bend in them. That's a jump point. And usually those jump points have either trees close enough to them they can jump from the jump point across to another tree. He also described jumping from those points to the ground. It's part of practicing, so you can get onto bigger things from above. And one of the requirements is they all have to speak Japanese to be in this society. It's kind of it's not just about hunting. It's also kind of about proper behavior, manners, protocols. It's and a bit more kind of martial arts-ish, actually, when you think about it, because the way he spoke of his teachers, where they were revered, they were elders, they were very wise, and to a degree, they were described kind of like a sensei in that regard, so they were not just teaching meditation, they were also teaching history and lore. And Gwantch, actually, they only have to be there until they're an adult 8. So 4 or 5 years is what maybe 6, is the amount of time they usually spend in the Deer Society. But Gwantch, he was already had taken on a role of being a teacher. So he was 2 years further along. He was age 10 and still within the Deer Society. So it was a potential life choice for him. Some of the functions of the Deer Society, and they also learn, running tactics, moving tactics, learning how to go up and down logs, how to jump from a high point to a stand point, either on a cliff, a rock, or sometimes a broken tree. It just kind of depends on the training type that's going on, according to the things that you described, anyway. And then there's also the fact that these groups typically, most of the kids that are sent, most of the young cryptids are sent to these places to become hunters, so they can take care of their own families when they marry. But some of these societies actually supply other local family groups. Some eldest male or eldest son or the father, husband of the group goes along on the hunts when they come for help. So it's not just a giveaway. It's they still have to learn the skills and work within the social structure of the deer society, even when they come to trade and ask for food. That's what some of the trail talk is about. It's like, which ones of you are coming to hunt? We'll make sure that you're taken care of. We'll guide you through this. We'll make sure that you have access to the deer herd. And there is also some suggestion from what he was saying that some groups are given particular routes that they are allowed to hunt. But a lot of it also has to do with maintaining the herd, not over hunting the herd. So there's that too for them. And then the main group, I think he said he was I think you said it was 30 or 35 younger individuals, between the ages of 2, 3, and 6, 7, 8, those ranges were in his group that he learned from. So it's going to be, a large group of males typically are the only ones that go to these hunting schools, deer society type worship, because there is also some religious behavior that's taught to them in that particular type of society. Respect for what's around you. Don't take more than you need. So it's also teaching them balance. What the earth can provide and what they actually need to sustain themselves. So there's also that sort of education going on. And looks like the group that I'm currently interacting with, once have been speaking Japanese, and have the Moi-ook dog potentially in their area, and the rodent. Yeah, they're either some part of that, because the rodent has tendency to go between the two hillsides. And then there's a third eastern hillside that I'll hear him on at night. I think that's where he lives. And then the two mountains south of me are points that he traverses during the day. And I don't know if he's an invited guest, but I do know he's a protected guest. So he might also be some function within that society that I'm not aware of. He might be, for all I know, he could be a trainer, but at the same time, he also may just be a garbage disposal, because if he is a crab, they'll eat anything. And, if you got something like that hanging around, you're not going to have a lot of junk around your campsite, so to speak. And if there is a large population up there that are interacting with the environment and going through, deer society training, then there's potentially 40, 50 individuals up there somewhere in the hillsides. So, that's potentially going to cause a lot of area use, animal stripping. You got a lot of product, so to speak, because if they're hunting and helping other local family groups or clans, then they're going to have some way of disposing of extra things like bones, what have you, from kills. So having a garbage disposal in the neighborhood might be worth it. Just, how dangerous is it to anybody? And some of the behaviors that I've already encountered up there, up on the very top where the tree has been down, there was a loud knock, 2 different occasions, because I've been up there like 3, 4 times, filming 3 times. And I think that was the individual, which I've mentioned before, that I was speaking Japanese with. I think he's potentially somebody there to keep the Ryujin back down in the gully where it's supposed to be. Because there was power knock a couple times, and and there was stop on the advancement on the other side. And then the other bigger guys that are up there are all kind of along that gully's top edge from what I've been noticing. And it looks like they're probably 5 or 6 on the ground, just depending on which sit spot they're in and how many of them are there in their sit spots. And I have found 2 tree blinds in the top edge of that gully. And they're they're really well concealed. One of them I've got about 30 feet I can go before I lose sight of it, and then it's completely hidden from view. And I've got maybe 40 or 50 feet for the other one because it's a little closer to the top of the ridge, not so far east. And and then it gets covered by other trees, etc. So I'll try to get some film of that. But this coming weekend, if the weather holds and it's not horribly rainy, which it's not supposed to be, I'm going to go up and sit on top, and I'm going to see. I'm not going to do a lot of talking because talking and moving around up there seems to draw the attention of the big scary guy. So I'm probably just going to go to the top and sit for 5-10 minutes and see how much of the interactions. I might say hello to the one that I think is up there if I notice any kind of activity. Say, Ohio goes my foot. See if I get an answer again. Because I'd really love to catch that on any kind of audio. And then if the Ryujin shows up, I'll take my time and I'll go my happy way down the hillside. And if I have time to do a second filming, I'm going to stop where the marriage tree is, see if I can catch anybody going through. Going to try to hang back a little bit, though. I want to try to, because they've been passing within about 30 feet of me, which I'm comfortable with. I don't have any problem with that. But I think I would get a wider angle if I dropped back another 10 or 20 feet. Would give me a little further distance for, getting the crossing. So if the individual's coming off the top of that gully edge, which is where I think they've been sitting, and crossing straight into that pathway that goes behind the marriage tree, then I might be able to catch them at distance, just coming across maybe 50 feet away. That would be a really nice capture if I could do that. Otherwise, if it doesn't look promising or that doesn't pan out, I'm actually going to try to get closer like I was previously within talking range and just see if I can see how many walk by. I've heard 2 or 3. I know one consistently walks by because he lets me see him all the time. But stepwise, I think I'm hearing 2 or 3 potentially. They're all kind of single filing and walking away from the Ryujin as he comes up. And they're about my height, a little taller, 6.5 foot maybe. So they're juveniles. They're probably 5-6 years old. Let me see if there are any questions here. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm glad that I can break some of this down. It's people don't have a background in this. There's no science for it. There's not a lot of research actually done into this sort of thing. And anything that I can kind of cross correlate between what I've been told lore-wise, what I've been told, straight from a cryptid, to paint hopefully some sort of a picture that has some sort of clarity to it, and help you adjust your thinking so that you can look at stuff that you always see and don't know how to interpret. Maybe some of this will help you interpret those sorts of things, and you can get further in your own exploration and research if that's your interest. Oh, the meditation huts. Glad you asked, Cosmic. How are the meditation huts designed? From what I was told, is they just brace up a fern, a sword fern typically, and they leave the fern growing in the same position. It's one of these where they've got living exterior to it. So the only things that are dead in this is just the bracing sticks. So they'll do a half round teepee structure, and they might do an interwoven side or a pair of sides. Those little woven sides are meant to keep other critters away, smaller stuff like foxes or raccoons or whatnot. And then the top of the hut, they draw up the sword ferns, let it grow, let it look like it's natural, so you don't notice the supports. And then the very top of the hut has this 5-6 inch diameter hole on top of it at the apex of where the point comes. So this apex here, they'll have a little hole, and that hole is to allow rain to drop in on you. So you're sitting usually on a hillside, from what Gwantch was describing. So they're almost always on a hillside. Rarely are they on a flat level area. They want you to have to balance while you're sitting there, so you're doing multiple things task wise while you're meditating, and it's designed so that the rain or anything that would be dripped on you, any kind of consistency or light, sunlight, also meant to cook you a little bit. It's also the individual, and this is always the young ones. They start the young ones in these little meditation huts, from like Gwantch stated, is to get you to concentrate, allow you to break away from any kind of disturbance, even being too hot or having water drip on you. It's not supposed to disturb you. It's a training method to bring forward the agility of the mind, because you have to rely on your senses when you're hunting. So part of it is also teaching the young one to listen, teaching them to look, but mainly it's to increase your concentration, so that you can operate well within maybe a stressful situation. You're running after game, or maybe you're dealing with some other kind of tribal issue. But either way, it allows you not to have a disrupted mind while you're doing something incredibly physical. So it's a point for concentration. And then the meditation also, part of it is that they're trained to look through the eyes of the game that they're going to be going after. So they're also taught to think and concentrate on the different things they understand about the animal, how it moves, where it sleeps, what it eats, where it gets water. Those are some of the things they're encouraged to run back through in their meditational state, so that they can, as Gwantch said, look through the eyes of the game. Once you get familiar enough with a target animal, you'll know instinctually, because you've seen the ground spoor probably dozens, if not hundreds of times. You'll know, oh well, if this bear is going around this ridge line this time of day, probably going back up over the top, probably got den over here, or he's got a foraging area down off on the other side. And it's just because you understand the trailing method, the movement pattern, and the way they forage during a particular day. And that's the sort of thing that the meditation huts are designed to allow the individual to gain that level of concentration, so you can look at the land lay even when you're running and be able to judge what's going to be ahead of you. Hey, James. Oh, so James, what I'm sharing on my channel are some of my loric understanding from my Native American culture, from my grandmother, from our medicine people side of the family, in relation to Bigfoot, cryptids, and some of the things Native Americans used to understand and know about, what we call our forest brothers, and some of the behavior societies, social structures that they operate within, in their own social structure, their own tribal systems, which, those of us who have an older education about these sorts of creatures, we understand they're part of the lost tribes. Some of them are very interlaced with Native American tribes, some are not. The particular Gwantch up here on this hillside, I've been flying lots of symbols for Thunderbirds. My guess is they're probably Thunderbird tribe. It's two major groups somewhere in this valley alone. They're all Thunderbird. And I know of one bigger group of 200 or so over in Central Oregon that are also Thunderbirds, the Cedar Eagle people. So they're all tribal people, and I think those are clan types, social structure. Because you got in Native American culture, tribes, bands, and clans, and that's the same sort of thing that Gwantch, the adopted Bigfoot father, that I have described to me. They have that same concept, social structure, and then you've got smaller, family groups. So they'll have a clan. You'll have 2 or 3 families, maybe 4 or 5 families in a clan, and then a clan will be made up. A band will be made up of probably that many or twice as many more groups, clans. So you'll go from, a family group of 10 to 5 family groups of 10. That's 50 people. That's, different little clans. And then those clans would be considered one band when they're together. And then any bands that are associated, cousins married in, etc. Those groups then are also counted kind of in the same way and just expand in number, and they're called tribes. So that's basically how the old tribal system used to work. And then you got your different societies in those structures, and those can be either specific to tribe, or, in the case of a medicine person, it can be specific to tribe, it could be specific to clan, band, or family. So it's all interlaced, social structure. And the Bigfoot clans and tribes and family groups act still very much the same, except they've got other cultural things that are going on with them that Native Americans didn't have, like the use of Japanese or Chinese as part of the primary language structure, along with some of the Native American languages like Habaneki. And then the Kana, then their trail language, all of that sort of stuff is intergroup communication. But the Kana and Kanji are definitely Asiatic, whereas the trail talk, what you use out when you're hunting or when you're first meeting groups and you don't know if you can talk to each other, you can still use the trail talk because it's pretty nondescript. It's all land lay based. It's pictographic in nature. So you can use that between groups if the groups can't speak to each other, which was also a common issue within Native American tribes, especially here on the West Coast. There'd be 300-400 tribes in an area, and they all had different languages. So there was, we had to have some way of being able to communicate when we couldn't talk to each other. And that's why hand talking became very prevalent through most of the major tribes. And then the other is the grass trail talking kind of stuff. So to get back to some of the other questions. Thank you, Cosmic. Okay. Why the deer? There was someone in Flash of Beauty that said they say a Sasquatch shapeshift into deer. And there are also odd deer seen by some, coined not deer, shapeshifting. I don't know a lot about that sort of thing because that wasn't part of the lores that I was taught. I understand, the stuff on the Navajo reservation, but that stuff typically doesn't go anywhere else. And to do those sorts of shape-shifting things in social structure of the Native American cultures, you'd be practicing dark magic. You'd be a dark shaman. You wouldn't be doing anything normal or natural. I've never seen any of the Bigfoot that I've been around shapeshift into anything. Not a deer, not a door, not a bush, not a nothing. I haven't seen that. I don't know if they can. There's some native lore that suggests some of our different society people, like Bear Society people, can shapeshift. It's possible if those lores are true. Just I don't have any experience with it. And the lore that I do have about it is typically, unless it's some sort of a protective society, Most of that stuff is actually darker, from what I understand. Hey, Jesse. Hello, young lady. Does the Dogman run in pack or just have contain clans? The reason I ask is because I play board rolling game and 14. The Dogmen in this area, from what I can tell, live in family groups, more or less like the rest of the cryptids in this area. I don't know a lot about their inner group structures. I know that originally they came from Egypt about 35,000 years ago. At least that's what the Native American stories say. My grandmother's stories, anyway. 35, 48,000 years ago, something like that. That's the first time we saw anything that we call the Shunka-ook or Dogman, which is what we call them today. So they're a transplant from the other side of the planet, supposedly. But other than that, no, I don't. The only groups I've ever been around have either been groups that are interacting with like other Bigfoot clans or tribes like the Yarn or the Skookum, and they're acting kind of like guards. There are a ton of grassland dogmen all over this valley, though. And they seem to move in small packs, like 5, 6 in a group, up to 10, but I haven't seen much more than that. And they have a tendency to really stick to the waterways compared to other cryptids. Like them and Skookum are always on a waterway somewhere, if they aren't out in the grasslands. Peculiar, but I would assume it's one of the easiest ways you can travel through any kind of residential area, farmland, etc., and not be noticed. Go down the waterways, really easy just to swim upstream or, hide in a bush, etc. It's got a lot of good cover, put it that way. But they don't seem to, with the exception of one group that I know the location of, they don't really seem to have a great big social structure here that's really evident other than they all kind of interact together. There are locations where I can find a lot of kana of theirs, but it's always out around the fields. I have to go out where people have farmland in order to mess around with the dog people. And they seem to be more strung out. They're more like, instead of being so concentrated in like one living area, they seem to be more spread out, more space between groups. And they don't seem to interact a lot with each other, though they seem to be aware of each other and they do trade with each other, but they don't like get into each other's territories a lot, is kind of what I'm thinking. They do have set patterns, though, just like some of these other guys. So they'll have certain cross-through trails that they like to consistently go on, and you can always, find them on that kind of trailing, but you have to know which ones to look for. The only other ones I've seen around this area have been kind of like rented hands or potentially shamanistic in nature. And I don't know as much as I'd like to know about them, simply because I've always concentrated on the ones that were more humanoid-like, because they're the ones I kind of grew up around, and they're easier to get to know. The dog people, they're a real pain in the butt. They will test the hell out of you. They like to get in your face. They like to keep you awake, so to speak. They like to keep you on your toes. So they're not the easiest to do research around. The one group that my friend had interactions with, where he got in a fist fight with one of their juvenile dogmen, that group seems to be pretty stationary. They've been in the same location for 30 years at least, maybe 40 or 50. Reasonable system in that area. Put out some over the years from what he described to me, and what I'm finding these days, it looks like they've gotten bigger in number. But I've this year is the only year I've really gone in and tried to do a whole lot of like interaction or try to get any kind of handle on anything more than what my friend had told me. And that's also the area where I got the one that whispered at me in English. I'm a friend as I'm examining his track. Yay, I was set up. So they're a lot more wily in their behaviors. They'll set you up too, but they'll do it quicker than a Bigfoot, like an Omar or Gwantch. It seems like Dogmen here are, if they aren't more aggressive, they're more friendly. They seem to be far more interactive, very quick manner compared to some of the other groups in this valley. The other groups are standoffish. It'll take you a couple of months to get to know them. Dogman in this area, a couple of weeks, and they'll start trying to interact with you. So they got a slightly different social behavior. Something I need to probably get into their group again next summer, since the whole area seems to be flooded. Like every Dogman area I checked this winter, it has flooded this season. So I don't have any dry land that I can go mess around with them in. Next summer, though, there should be plenty of dry land where they're going to be. So I'll see what other kinds of things I can get recorded. Hopefully I'll be as lucky in those areas as I have been up here with the Gwantch. Cosmic. I know you've mentioned that they're not shape-shifting, but it's a motto to me. Yeah, it's true. Footage of indigenous tribal members claiming they could be an invisible Sasquatch standing next to you. Yeah. Maybe it's a sensitivity thing. Maybe it's an empathic sort of thing. It could be part of the meditative state. I'd have to see it. I wouldn't. It would be interesting to know if somebody could catch that on film. That'd be very interesting to see. It'd even be more interesting to learn how to do it, as long as it wasn't anything too peculiar. Okay, Cosmic. I've heard before that they hang their kills on trees, especially deers, to let rot because supposedly some like rotten meat. Any views on this? I haven't seen that actually up here. The most I've seen, there's one small family group of dog people south of here. They'll collect a deer every year in the springtime, if I remember right, in April, May area and time. And they'll leave the hide, the legs, and usually the head in a particular field. And it's usually a fawn. It's usually smaller deer for some reason. It's not a bigger deer. I don't know if that's a religious behavior or if it's some sort of ceremonial thing for spring. They do seem to take the main body of the animal with them. But I've tried for years to track that group, and they are like ghosts. It's way easier to track a freaking Bigfoot than it is that particular family group of Dogmen. And I've been all over. It's about 14 acres. I've been all over it. I know there's no bed system. It's some sort of cross through area that they, hang out and do their certain collections. Like there's certain plants that they collect in that area. There's certain game that they collect in that area. But I don't think they live in that area. I think they're somewhere on the periphery outside of that area. Because everything that I found, and I've been tromping through that area for, since 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Everything that I found in there for a trail leads out. Nothing stays in that area. Even the smallest trails that I follow that I considered their trails lead into nothingness. It's the weirdest dang thing I've ever seen. And I haven't found any high up structures that let me, think that they might be up in the trees like bear people. So I haven't found anything elevated off the ground that would suggest a bed area. I haven't found anything on the ground. But then, maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe I'll find the right path, or maybe I'll notice something I didn't notice the last time. But they do use a lot of kana in that particular area. So it's a real kana rich communication area, which I've got to go down, do some filming there just for the kana that's there, because they do a lot of communication. And it's always in the same area. So I think they're communicating with another group of dogs somewhere in the area. So it might be like an edge boundary portion of their overall living area or hunting grounds, however you want, a tribal area. I know they're a small group. And I haven't found all of the hunting evidence that I found over the years. It's always been fresh kill. You'll find entrails, you'll find feathers or skin, depending hide, etc. And it will be fresh. It's always a fresh take. When I found food rolls or bundles, it's always been fresh kills, and they're not left anywhere. The ones up in Washington, there was a group of Gwantch that I was following for a while and doing some track evidence on them. Got a bunch of pictures of their like living circumstance, including some really nice upside down basket woven, half round looking huts that they were living in that are all vine covered, really beautiful actually, and they were all conjoined, so you get up on that ridge line, and they went back for a good 30 feet and probably 20 feet across. But they're all little individual basket huts that you could go from one hut to the next, and it was all completely covered. But they would take the bones from their smaller animals, and they would put them on their trail system. They were the only group that I found that did that, and it's very much like porcupine behavior, because porcupines will do similar behavior, except some of the places that the bones weren't logical for a porcupine to do. Putting them under rocks, putting them up in the crotch trees that were pushed into the bark, where you had to have hands and a lot of strength to do it. So there was some peculiar stuff that group did that I haven't seen like other groups do. Maybe it's just different living style. Maybe it's due to the terrain. Maybe it's due to custom. I don't know. Some actually do supposedly tan skins, because Jen, when she talked about the leather for her boots that she'd made to protect her feet, she traded for the elk hide, and it was the boots were smoke tanned, basically suede. So they were. It was a hide that was smoke tanned and rubbed over a log. The way it was cured, and they were very supple. It was a nice pair of elk skin boots, but her group, her family didn't skin animals. They don't do that, so she had to trade for that particular. Hey, maybe I like figure out how they were. Okay, Jesse, wise mom, what could I say if I encounter a forest? People don't want to insult them. I just let them know there's. Well, usually the same sort of thing Native Americans do. You raise your hand, say hi. Gway, that's the simplest way to say hello to them. It's Abenaki. A lot of them will understand it if they don't understand English. If you don't get the right response, leave the area. But usually just a hello, like you do any other person, goes a long way. That and, just be polite. They don't like thieves. They don't like liars. If you trade with them, always be honest. Otherwise, you're not going to be bothered by them. Typically, they don't even care that we walk through their areas. They don't at least none of them up here have any bad reactions that way. And unless there's some sort of red-boned, if they're a Gugway, you're going to have more difficulties. If they're some other kind of critter that's a more dangerous cryptid, no problem. Oh, Vic, you heard dog people guard portals. It's a possibility. I don't like something that had hooves, and it was in freaking pitch black darkness on a dark moon. I was up in the woods with a friend of mine who had just gotten back from Great Britain. He had gone through like several years of memorization. He was learning Druidic historic lore, and we got to talking, and it was really late, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is my experience at Stonehenge, and, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Hey, I know a funny place kind of like that, what you're describing." So I took him up to it, and we had the weirdest encounter I've ever had. I've never had another encounter like it, but something. There was at least 6 or 7 creatures. It sounded like they had like horses or something coming at us from all directions in this high up ravine. Very weird sounding, and it seemed like everything was much, much darker. Like all of a sudden we couldn't see like stars, we couldn't see anything, even in the dark of the moon, that you could usually see. So it was like there was just this cloud of darkness that came over the area. And my friend, he starts, going off in Gaelic, and he says, "No, we need to leave. There's something that just came through here. We need to leave." So we left. And I've never had another experience like that. I don't care to have another experience like that. And that's the only thing, that is the one and only incident I would consider potentially that something walked through a portal nearby where we were. And that was because of his reaction and because of what he understood things, what my friend understood. I don't have a good enough understanding to make any kind of judgment on it. Okay, Cosmic. The little clamshells that are an inch or so in diameter, they will use to pull stickers out with and pull hairs that are infected out with, because they work like, they work kind of like tweezers. You can get a hold of small stuff. Other than that, maybe something religious, because I have seen some odd stuff with clamshells and rocks that look like they've been shaped or chosen because of a shape. There's that sort of thing that might be going on too. But other than that, I don't know what else, unless there's some sort of a tool thing going on with them. It kind of depends on what you mean by shells, like how are they used. The only way I know they're used is to remove stickers and, deal with that sort of thing where they need a pair of tweezers. They don't have tweezers. Or pulling an infected hair. Okay, Jesse, I've heard accounts of female Sabe protecting human children lost or being preyed upon by predators. What's your opinion? I would say that's accurate, actually. And that's only because of my experiences with Jen protecting our family. I'm pretty sure if I hadn't had a good interaction with her, she maybe would have left our property, but because we were interacting with her well and I was interacting with her regularly, she stayed and protected us. She didn't leave the area when the Gway came onto our property and tried to, not just harm her, but it was probably going to take us out as well. And then the incident down in the Sequoias, where I saved the Skookum child by whacking God, I was a dumb kid, by whacking a freaking coyote with a stick. The Skookum mother, she immediately, as soon as she realized both of us were in the area and the coyote was turning on me, she came into the area, picked the coyote up, and broke its back before I had a word to say about it. I went from whacking a coyote to realizing, oh God, I'm now in the place of the kid. I'm going to be the next one attacked. So I was jabbing at the coyote to keep him back. And then all of a sudden she just ran across the creek and she was there, killed the coyote. And then I had to call my mom. Hey, Mom, I talked to these people. I don't know what the... So the interactions that we had the few days that we were there, helping, the little one heal back up because he'd been bit through the arm pretty good. He had a torn blood vessel that my mom sewed up. And then we stayed, I think it was 5 or 7 days to make sure he was knitting back together well before we left. It was actually a location my grandmother had sent us to for, when you first start camping in the Sequoias, this is a safe group of tribal people to be around. They'll help you, they'll protect you. And then, we ended up having that incident occur the second day we were in the Sequoias. So I would say they would protect because it seems those two incidences convince me they are protective of young ones. Cosmic, do they make bone piles? Is it ritualistic? I have seen bone piles, but I think those are from the sun-faced people. Because I haven't seen that with like the Gwantch, the Yeren, Oma, Skookum. They don't make bone piles. Oma will occasionally, a male will make a trophy tree where like a young male in the tribal system that has kind of a higher status, if he's trying to marry young at age, 5, 6, 7, before he's an adult, he'll make a tree where he hangs all of his prize catches. So if he is able to catch small deer, foxes, coyotes, raccoons, possums, squirrels, etc., he'll take the skulls of those animals and he'll kind of decorate a tree. And it's usually a medicinal tree of some kind. The one that I found was actually on a witch hazel tree. And it had like little deer skulls and a couple of fox skulls down around the bottom. And then it had, smaller skulls, raccoons, and what have you, up on the branches. But it was all to display to a potential mate, hey, this is all the food types that I can hunt for. These are all the things I can bring home to eat. I'd make a good husband because I'm a good provider. It was a display of that sort of thing. And it's the only one I've ever found myself. My grandmother told me about them because there was a young Yeren in the group that she grew up around, that she had her turnout done around, that did similar behavior. I made a trophy tree when he married to attract a mate. And there was one clip I saw online. Somebody had found one, a trophy tree with skulls in it. Not skeletons, just the skulls. And that was some mountain biker. Somebody was, bicycling and found it. But it's behavior just to attract a mate, as far as I know. Okay, Cosmic. Do they lay down a large tree trunk across creeks or humans can cross. Yes, I've seen that a lot. I know one creek alone was probably in the space of 200 feet, got probably 4 or 5 huge trees laid across it for crossing. And they're 3-4 foot in diameter, a couple of them. And anytime they wash out, more trees are brought to be put in place to crossover. And that is one of the areas where I'm very aware there's a large group of Gwantch in the area. It's one of the group areas where I go and gift to that particular group. It's the only thing they'll really let me do. And I think there's somewhere between 60 and 20 that are, down on that river edge that don't mind hanging out. And there are probably more in the area because of all of the amount of cross trailing across the creek. Because the creek in its widest point's about 20, 25 feet across. So it's actually a small river in the higher, flood seasons of the year. Summertime it dries out pretty good, but those major logs that go across, you'll see the track evidence wear on them as the years goes by. And I've been out there in that group's area off and on for like a good 10, 15 years, maybe more at this point. Okay, peace, journey, peace to y'all. You have a good night. Thank you, by the way, for showing up. Thank you, Cosmic. Some have mentioned that lavender keeps cryptids away. Is that the case? One of the peculiar things about my grandmother's stories was that one of her sisters liked to wear, what was it? Violet scented perfume. And one of the Yaren boys liked the scent of her clothing and would always steal her clothing off of the clothing line when it was drying because of the scent. So I don't know if lavender would work to keep them away. It might be an attractant because I know that violets attract them. And I've actually experimented with the perfume while out in the woods. Wanted to see if there would be any difference in the reaction if I wore a particular scent around them. And what I got was much more friendlier behavior out of some of the males that had been more, standoffish, go the heck away, leave me the heck alone. I don't want to be bothered by a kid, basically. I would wear the perfume and I would get, or, from the woods as I went by. So the scent had something to do with things for them. It might be that, like mink, when they go into heat, they smell like lavenders behind their ear, or not lavender. They smell like lilacs. They smell like lilacs. So it might be, scents might have something to do with some of their mating stuff. Even though they can mate year round, almost every animal has a scent gland, including us. And we sometimes will end up floral smelling or fragrant smelling, musky in the case of males when we're attracted to somebody. Whether we realize it or not, we still have that same sort of pheromone patterning that other animals do. Attractant or not. Yeah, I'm glad I was able to figure out how to give you the wrenches there, Cosmic. Thank you for doing that for me. I really appreciate your help. You're awesome. Okay, Jesse. Okay, talking to each other. Grand Seer. We'd love to hear about the Gway, Duke Sullivan, the World Bigfoot Central is the only one who really talks about him in more detail. Yeah, the Gway that was on our property and the few, well, there are 4 or 5 small family group in this area that I can kind of get close to. I still get growled at every once in a while, which is kind of creepy. But in the last 2 years, they've gotten a little more friendly with me and actually tried to do a little bit of mineral trading with me, which I was very surprised at. I wasn't sure they had that kind of social structure to their group. They're always more involved from what my native grandmother's stories said about them. There's one in a river south of here. He's really kind of aggressive. He likes to try to sneak up on me on the other side of the river. And when I'm down in the rock beds on the eastern side, occasionally he will swim across that river. And I know there's just way too much cover in the crenellations of that rock because there's petrified coral in that area. So I always take a buddy with me to watch for that thing to come up on me because I don't trust it one flipping bit. It's the one I've got in the picture. It's the red-mouthed one. That's up on, I think, some of my lives. And then the one that came to our ranch, it looked incredibly human in the face. Creepy human in the face. It had a strong jawline. It had slightly larger canines. It had claws instead of fingernails. It had claws on its toes as well. So those were a couple of unusual differences. And it had a ruff of hair from behind the ear to behind the ear that was slightly longer. So it had maybe 6 or 8 inch long hair on its head, where the rest of its body hair was like 3-4 inches in most cases. And its overall like hair structure looked very chimpanzee-ish from what I remember. He didn't have like a big ruff or anything like any of the mandrills or any of the other kinds of primates. He looked overall very human in the face, incredibly human in the face, freaky human in the face. But the body itself was wider, like a bodybuilder. Man, he was only about 8.5 feet tall, but he was about 5 foot across. He was like a Samoan. He was huge. He was like a Samoan. He was fucking massive. And very peculiar behavior out of that one. You know, he food where he collected his food. He ate mostly crawdads, and he'd tear them apart when he ate them. He was very weird in his behavior. But then, you know, the fellow who recently did the scientific mock-up again, of rebuilding a skull. The guy was using the Neanderthal skull, and the clay mock-up, forensic mock-up, looked a lot like the Gway that had been on our property when I was younger. And then the only other one I've ever had an encounter with that I've seen was one that was in the redwoods. I came to investigate. My mom and I sleeping in the back of our truck when I was like 8. We had a 52 Dodge, and we had a little, oil canvas camper bag thing with just, metal frame. And that thing tried to untie the back of it. Thank God it fiddled with it, couldn't figure it out. And it gave up eventually and it went away. But as we were driving out of that particular camp area, and it was an old, like, Girl Scout camp, kind of, bare bones. I think you had to pack everything in and pack everything out. And I think they just had not even a biff, just I don't even think that one had running water, if I remember right. It just had ground toilets in it. So it was a very rudimentary campsite. But driving back out of that site in the morning, yeah, that guy was sitting up on the hillside. That was a little unnerving because it was just watching us, just sitting there. So I don't trust those guys. The ones that I've been able to get close to, I've been trying to get them to loosen up enough I can see them. They're really, really good at hiding. They've gotten probably within 12 or 15 feet of one of them. But if I try to get any closer, they growl at me a lot. So I'm still working on trying to get closer to one of those in that group. But I'm still not too trusting of them. Most of the red bone people will let you get up close to them. That's part of the problem. If you get too close, they just might grab you. They don't like to exert any effort. The Gway do have the problem though with eating too many crawdad gives them cataracts and makes them blind in certain lights. So they rely heavily on scent to track you. So don't be upwind of them. Always be downwind of them. And downwind, but at least you won't be getting scented. They won't be realizing you're there because they are pretty blind. I think the one that was on the ranch, he could maybe only see me clearly at about 30 or 35 feet max. And that was if I was standing up and, not trying to hide myself in any way. He could see me pretty good at 10 or shorter foot. But after that, his cataracts were so bad, I must have been just a blur to him for the most part, unless I was standing. Because when I laid down and I tried to sneak across the field, he couldn't see me. I'd have to be, wrong windage for him to catch scent of me. And then he let me know. Oh yeah, he definitely let me know. So they've got a very different mindset than the other Bigfoot people. The more friendly people, the Sabe. They definitely have a predatory nature to them. Okay. Granzier. As the saying goes, if a grizzly bear, moose, and a wolf run past you, and a bald eagle flies by you, then chances are it's a Gway they are running away from. You better start running fast. There's a possibility. There are lores about that sort of thing where they'll chase down food, but usually they're so dang blind they don't try to get out of cover much. I've noticed. They pretty well habitually stay undercover, except for the ones that are still able to see somewhat. Like the one that comes across the river from me down south of here, he can obviously flip and see me. So his diet is different. What degree of difference, I don't know. I have traversed the other side of the river to see if there's any way I can get down into the area where he crosses through. It's all private property. And I haven't been able to knock on the door and go, hey, man, you think you got a Bigfoot Gway or something on your property? You want me to go investigate? No property owner's going to let that happen. And they'll probably, tell me to get lost because I'm out of my flipping mind. Oh, it might be. My reception up here has been kind of wonky because of the weather recently. Sorry about that. Yours, you scared Jody. I guarantee you all of these trolls come from the other cryptid channels that think you are lying. I don't see anyone getting trolled like that on here. Yeah, I kind of figured. And I think you're probably right on that. I didn't realize it, but there have been quite a bit of that sort of thing ever since I started my channel. People don't want to give leeway for anybody else's thought. That's okay. That's their problem. And you're probably right. Probably is trolls from other channels because I've noticed that a lot. I've noticed some natives even picking on me. And I didn't even understand the racism that they were trying to throw at me because I'd never had it thrown at me before. Like, oh, okay, whatever. So I've just learned to ignore that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm just waiting for the ones that start popping up with my information saying it's theirs, because that's usually the next scenario that occurs. If they can't, yell you into a corner or badger you into a corner, then they start stealing your fucking work. Oh, excuse me, did I say it that way? So, be careful of that. You might see that happen. But we all know where the information comes from. Yeah, right, Jesse. Okay, peace journey. I respect your lesson. I've been given ancient artifacts, odd rocks, and carved rocks now, even in my doorstep. Oh, awesome! I think they like me or the gifts. Yeah, they start giving you some really neat stuff when they start building a good relationship with you. I'm glad that the advice helped. Okay, you scare Jody unless someone is targeting them. Yeah, there's that. Cosmic. It seems like they really like corn. Yeah, I've noticed even the Dogman. Um, one of those groups actually likes corn too, and they won't cook it, which is bad for them. That can give you liver or kidney failure. If you eat raw corn. But yeah, corn. A lot of them like corn. Even Jen Jen on the ranch, she'd snag corn from our garden. Okay. I believe they knocked on my window one time when we had corn in the backyard, possibly asking permission to take some. Yeah, probably. One of the things that you can do with that sort of thing is, pull a few ears, put a pair of cross sticks down, leave the ears next to the cross sticks, basically saying, "Hey, this is what we can spare." And what I did on the ranch when Jen Jen started marking our vegetable lines in our garden, because she'd mark everything that she liked with a white stone. You can also put down a white stone, let them know it's okay for them to take what they want. You can also just tell them, hey, take what you can use, because they won't typically take more, especially if it's not their stuff. Dang, Cosmic. Definitely agents of some sort, or like you said, other channels trolling. Yeah, well, I've had problems with both of those issues in the past. Even in some of my research areas, I've had unusual people show up, put it that way. Yeah, the carved rocks are pretty cool. I've gotten a couple of carved rocks over the years. The one little, very articulate little facial piece, that was given by the Skookum Boy. That was one of the more unique pieces I've ever been given. Yeah, but I've also got a piece of, was it red jasper that's got my previous dog Caesar carved on one side, and my current dog Karma carved on the other side. Really cute little, very accurate, very cute little drawings of them. And that was given to me probably by the dog man that I was around, because it was that area I was gifted that particular stone. Funny thing is, though, is he'd never seen my dog Caesar, because my dog Caesar, well, unless he was in the area 5 miles below where I was living then, because my dog Caesar had died just a few months before I moved into the yurt down there where the dog man was. So unless that dog man had been, 5 miles down the road where I'd been previously living, he would have never seen the other dog. So maybe it was a rock that had been handed off, or I don't know the circumstances, but I still have the rock, and it's pretty neat. It's really, really well done. When I pull it out, I'll have to show it to you guys. Yeah, I'm really glad I finally figured out how to do this monitoring stuff, kind of. Hopefully, I can repeat this. Uh, Not monitoring, you know what I mean. Home monitoring. Yeah, yeah, I would tend to agree with you guys on that one. I've noticed a lot of the cryptid researchers that I've spoken to, either online or in real life, their biggest thing is they don't want their particular theory to be bunk. They don't want to lose money. A lot of them write books on the topic, and you can write any opinion you want. I don't know everything. I definitely don't know everything. I already know that. I know a little bit. I know my lore. I know what I've seen. I know what I've experienced. But other than that, I don't really know anything. You know. But when you propose or introduce people, come on up. When you introduce people to information they're not used to hearing, especially on a topic that they think is exclusive, you're always going to get pushback on that. You're always going to get people not happy with you. And that was one of the things I considered. How vicious are people going to get if I go telling my grandmother's lore? And yeah, whatever, they're weirdos. Yeah, well, peace journey. Some Bigfoot use stone drills, like Native American style little drills, and on some of the stuff, I think they're using broken chisel points or hardened nails or something to scratch into stone. Uh, Uncle Long used to carry a nail that he had smithed on the end that was like a little awl. It had kind of a wedge point to it so that he could cut into stone and leave stuff marked into stone. And in fact, the bubblegum rock that he gave me, he pulled his nail out of his pocket and he carved his original marriage agreement to his wife on the stone before he gave it to me. So I'm going to have to lift that off with, a piece of tissue paper and, graphite rubbing, use some pencil lead to bring that imagery up so I can show it to you guys because it's pretty neat. It just shows the old writing, like pictographic writing, and it's simple. It shows a representation for him, a representation for her, the fact that they were Christian in some ways or Buddhistic, because he describes certain elements as being the same, because the morals are the same, and then their agreement. You know, that would be as soon as I grab that, I'll have to, uh, you guys see that kind of little pictographic carving too, because it's going to be relevant. It's very similar to the trail language. Very pictographic in its nature. And I don't remember if you put any kana on that particular stone or not. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of toxicity on YouTube because of all the clickbait stuff. I'm not here to make a bunch of money off of this. Yeah, it'd be nice if I could monetize my channel. It would be nice if I could have a couple hundred extra bucks a month. That'd help me a lot. But at the same time, I'd rather that the information's out there. It's more important to me that everybody gets a chance to utilize this information, take it in for themselves, and try to explore it for themselves. Because if any of it turns out to be correct, which I'm hoping that it will be, because it's always been useful to me, then we'll actually have some basis point for some decent research. If we can consistently identify stuff, it would be a lot easier to find them. If we can consistently communicate, or at least read their communications, we can figure out how to communicate with them. And if somebody can, break the ice and show everyone else how to do it, then by all means, everybody else should be able to hopefully be able to do the same thing. And, that would give credence to bringing these guys out of the woods, so to speak. Whether or not we ever, I don't want to put it down to shoot one as an animal, please don't. But if we're ever able to establish communication, that's probably a much better avenue than, hunting them down like an animal. And, some people, there have been several people I've helped across the board a couple times in the last few years, and they've had really positive results with either communicating with them with kanji, or communicating with them by, knocks or trail language, little markers and stuff that I've let them know, hey, these are the things that you can do to try to encourage interactions, and these are the things that might work, and these are the kinds of results I've had, so that's helped establish some interactions with different groups. So, it's only a matter of time, this all comes together and everybody is able to get what they need out of it, then there's a good chance that we can create some sort of a communication again with something somewhere, and that should maybe bring some stuff forward, hopefully. Just want to acknowledge, tried these so-called experts I heard and experienced in the moment, people laughing at me, including family. Oh, yeah, that's a hard one to deal with, especially when you're dealing with so much modern mythology about these things. One, you don't know how many different types are out there. Everybody thinks it's Patty. It looks like a gorilla, it must be Bigfoot. Well, yeah, it is. There are also a couple other dozen creatures out there that are also Bigfoot and then don't look anything like that. And then, you also got the people that want to place them in a box, like they're just big primates. Well, so are we. But we don't act like gorillas or chimpanzees, and neither do most cryptid people. They have a completely different way of interacting with each other. So that makes a huge difference. People don't like to have that precept, those modern mythologies broken. Just like they don't like to say, hey, they may not travel in spaceships, they may not step out of portals. Maybe it's just something else that's going on, and maybe there's more than one thing going on in the same area too. Because I'm very aware that the Gwantch up here and the Skakkum up here have nothing to do with the bizarre lights that are occasionally in this area, because they react poorly to the fucking peculiar orange lights that come into this area. But the orange lights aren't always here. I've only seen them 3 times in the last 9 months. Funny humming sound that comes with them too. So I've never seen what makes the orange light, because it's always behind the tree line. It's always out of direct sight. And people have reported that peculiar orange glow in this area over the years. It's one of those funny, nobody knows what the heck it is, nobody's seen what it is, but there's the funny humming sound and the peculiar colored orange light in the skyline. So it could be equipment, it could be something extraterrestrial, I don't know. But I know that the Bigfoot people up here warn about it, and they don't like you going out of your house when this, whatever that light is in the area. And not many of them are around. They seem to thin out in number. Like, they don't want to be around it either. Oh, I'm sorry, Ho. Up here, my reception's kind of hit and miss. Towers up on the opposite hill, but if there's too many clouds in the area, I get drowned out. So sometimes I'll even drop connection while I'm trying to broadcast. Funny thing is I think up on the hillside where where I'm planning on going, I have 1 or 2 bars. I might be able to actually broadcast from up there on a good day. So I'm gonna, while I'm doing my filming tomorrow, I'm going to double check to see how many bars stay consistently on my phone up that path. And if I get a point where I've got, 2, 3 good bars like I have here, I'll probably just go ahead and try to broadcast at some point from up there. That way you don't have to wait. I can sit there and talk. I might have to move, depending on what comes up the hillside, comes up from the gully. I don't want to be in the middle of too much stuff up there. But, I might be able to sit a little further down and still be able to get vocalizations caught, that sort of thing, and be able to broadcast from somewhere up there. Also rocks, Jesse, our peace journey. Also rocks with depression chips and sanded flakes, also, and strike stones. Yeah, I've also found core stones in my area. Kind of like what Neanderthals, how they made their stone tools. They'd take a massive chunk of material, they would knock the top off, and then they'd strike multiple tools off the same core stone. I see that behavior a lot in the Bigfoot's way of making their tools. At least up this area, there's a lot of core material left around, and it will be small for arrowheads to, I think the biggest I found is a core stone about 10 or 12 inches long. That's still, got the fracturing that you can see where the stone tools have been chipped off the outside and then shaped. Oh, wow, Jesse. A lot of military bases have all kinds of cryptids on them. Port Louis, my dad was mustered in and out of Port Louis and served as a drill sergeant there for a while after World War II. And he said there were a ton of Bigfoot around that area, all over that base. And he said the further you got out on ranges, he said, yeah, it was pretty common to see them. And they've been known of since at least World War II, because that's when he was serving. So I don't doubt that other military bases have the same sort of thing going on. I've talked to way too many military guys that understand these things way too good, way too well, and aren't all that shocked when they see them. So I know they've seen them more than once. And some of the guys realize they're not going to hurt you. Some, though, God, you get scared half to death. And that's not fun. Okay, Vic, have you seen amber-colored orbs when out looking for them? No, I haven't seen orbs in any of the Bigfoot areas I've been into. Okay. Peace Journey. I'll check out. Thank you. Okay, never mind. That's in a group to you guys. Cosmic. I love coming across the rocks. I personally don't pick them up, just document them. Yeah, that's a good idea. There are a few unusual stones in this area I still need to document. There's a group of Omal that have a marker they put up once a year at the beginning entry area to their home. And it's a ghost rock. looks like a ghost head. It's really interesting looking. And then there's down in one of the river areas, there's a family group of skookum that have looks like a hereditary piece that only shows up once a year. And I'm pretty sure it's some sort of petrified internal organ. Looks like a heart, to be exact. And I kind of suspect that might be the heart that was referred to by Uncle Ong from his reincarnation dream when he was talking about the Allosaurus that he and his 2 boys killed after they killed his wife after the Allosaurus ate her. So it's potentially a petrified Allosaurus heart. I really want to document that. So you've been growled at once. Yeah, it kind of unnerves you, don't it? Definitely unnerves me when it happens. Okay. Jesse, Mother, how tall do these people get? I'm sorry, many accounts say 12, 15 feet tall. Have you ever seen this? I have seen some that are that tall. But on average, it depends on the species. So if you're dealing with Gwantch and Oma males get to be about 10 feet in height, usually. The females are a little shorter, 8, 9 foot. Gwantch get bigger. They get at 11-ish foot in height, 10, 11 foot. Their females are also slightly larger. The Yeren, most of them stay 8 to 10 feet, but I have seen one that's got to be scraping 12. But he's older. He's starting to go gray. So, the older they are, the bigger they are. Some of the sun-faced people, they're huge. The one group that was in my turnout area that was back in the bramble bushes from hell, they on average scrape 12, 13 feet in height. I did see one individual in that group from a distance I figured was about 15 feet in height, but I only saw him crawling through the old scrub bush, so I didn't ever get to see him standing upright. It was just kind of a guesstimation by how big he looked. But the one that came to investigate me, I'm pretty sure he was scraping 12 feet, and he was flipping huge. And his track was about 28, 32 inches long. It's almost a yard long on his foot, so he was huge. And he didn't where he moved, he didn't care what was in his way. The other group of sun-faced people there, they were more human sized. The younger ones that were interacting with me, that were being pestering of me, they averaged 6 foot, 6.5 feet. So they were about human size. The parents that I saw in the group, because I try to sneak up on the original and above where they had their beds, their parents looked like they were 8, 9 foot in height. So it was just a small family group of like 7 individuals. There was 2 parents and 4 boys and a couple of girls. Or a girl. I never could tell if there was 1 or 2 girls, or they might have been twins. I just couldn't always see them in the same spot. And I was always getting chased out of the area by the boys, so I didn't want to hang around in danger zone. 4 of them to 1 of me, no, not good odds. But most of them, they average between 6 feet and about 8 feet on average. They can be bigger depending on what species, what race, etc. Who been screaming at it. It sounds like one who is being murdered with a roar. Yeah, that sounds like the mating call that you're talking about there, Jesse. That's no roar to Jen, but she definitely sounded like a woman being murdered when she was screaming for a mate. Honey, stop begging. Okay, Jacob, did you go to school with Jesus? Do you owe Moses lunch money? Yeah, that's funny. I like the banter. Don't be a troll though, buddy. If you want to hang out and be peaceful and interact, cool. Don't be a turkey. It's all right, baby girl. Yeah, thank you for that, Jesse. Yeah, I'm not here for clicks or clout or shit like that. No, I just want the information to be preserved that my grandmother taught me and that my parents, diligently taught me about these cryptid people, so that others can have the information and it can be. It's my biggest thing. You all right, baby girl? Get Nancy. You want to go out? Stop. Okay. Hello out. Come on, lay down. Come on. All the way down. All the way down. Come on, baby girl. Here you go. Sorry, she's getting all antsy. She doesn't get enough love. When I'm on the phone talking to you guys, she doesn't get enough attention. Okay. Hey, Deborah. How you been? Hello. Was wondering what the Z means. A friend asked me the other day. I wasn't sure. I think the Z pattern typically means all of that. It's a kind of a sentence, kind of all of that, all of those, quantifier kind of statement. Yeah, Chris Sauber, that's a good one. Let me see if there are any other questions I can answer. Oh, yeah. Cosmic, have you had any rocks thrown at you? Which ones threw pebbles at the ankles? Oh, I had a female with a child that used to throw like pea-sized gravel at my feet. That was one of the Gwantch females up in Washington that I'd been tracking. I got to track her through the first part of her, or the last part of her pregnancy, probably the last 3-4 months of her pregnancy, the birth of the child, and then another year and a year and a half ish after the baby was born. And she always just threw little pebbles at me. The Aaron, when I pissed them off, they were throwing no basketball-sized rocks at me that day. And my dog. So I got out of the way of that. I've had pine cones thrown at me a lot. I've had branches thrown at me. I've had a rock go past my head, and that was probably a good golf ball sized rock. To a couple of times I've had a baseball sized, like a hardball sized rock go past my head, 3-4 feet. So I know they're intentionally missing me because I know they're good enough with stones to crack you in the noggin. The best throw, though, I've ever experienced, I was driving 45 miles an hour on a back road because I was trying to take a look at the terrain because I'd been noticing one in the bush line. And evidently he didn't like me looking for him. So one of the times I was out there, I got a piece of clay, a little pinch of clay that was dried. So he had pinched clay flat and had broken off little pieces of it. And I didn't realize it. So anyway, he hucked this piece of pinched clay that couldn't have been any more than maybe a half inch or so wide and maybe an eighth of an inch or so thick. He hucked that through my window. I only had the window down about 6-8 inches for my dog to stick her head out. Past my dog's head, hit me in the temple, landed on my leg as I was driving. I didn't realize, I thought it was a bug or something that had come in. I didn't realize at first that it was what I'd been looking for had thrown something through the window at me. It took me a second to register and replay in my head what I saw out of the corner of my eye. And while I was trying to figure that out, I picked up the clay and went, funny, it's got a fingerprint on it. I crushed it and I threw it away because I wasn't thinking about, oh, that might be the thing I've been looking for, because it was just such a peculiar incident. And he hasn't done that again, unfortunately. But I know that they can. Should have kept that piece of clay. But, I wasn't thinking about brushing on my, some bug or something that had come in. Because sometimes a stink bug or whatnot will be, or bees sometimes will come in and at speed when you're going down the road. And you don't think about it, you just brush them off here or whatever. And I was one of those just automatically, oh, wait a minute. Could have thought about that first. Okay, Jesse at Pocono's campsite, plenty of experiences with pebbles and knocking there. Oh, I don't doubt it. Good thing to catch on your phone if you have a chance to record any of that stuff. The more of the similar behaviors that can be collected and documented, then we can establish patterns of behavior that way. You've seen the letter Z as a glyph. Yeah. I've seen it up here a couple of times. Usually as a quantifier statement, all of that or all of those sort of thing it's usually referring to. Oh, thank you, Jesse. I'm glad you guys are interested in this topic because, that way hopefully it will get preserved in some way or get utilized. It'd be, really ideal if it gets utilized, because then maybe we can break the barrier between us and them. And maybe we can dispel a bunch of myths in the process. Right on, Jesse. Like your attitude. Yeah, I've heard that too, Jesse. That apparently the Bigfoot like moonshine when it comes fermented. Yes, I've tracked one individual up in Washington that lived near a beach area, and whenever anybody would leave a partial 6-pack behind or a partial case behind or anything that still had a cap or hadn't been popped behind, that particular Gwantch individual would snag that stuff. And he had a couple of little repositories up underneath the vines and off in the bushes where he'd put his beer stash. Funny. Some of them evidently like the same kinds of beverages we do. It was also known in ancient times. It was one of the things talked about by the Romans. In particular, the people that tried to capture them, what they called libers satyros, they often use wine to capture them. To get them drunk. And tie them up like they did sauna. Sauna in Russia was captured that way. she was gotten drunk and tied up. Excuse me. Yeah, peace, Trini. You're welcome. Yeah, it's better that we're good neighbors with them than not. There's been a history of different people in different countries having good relationships with them, and there are plenty of good stories as well as bad stories. So it's just a matter of sorting out which end of the stick we're on, as it were. Thank you, Josie. Well, I am actually working with somebody who's helping me compile a couple of books. Well, at least one book, a starter book. And we're going to be covering some of the trail stuff, tracking, and some of the kana, and then some of the lore also be in that particular first book. So I'm not sure when it's going to be ready, but we're starting the collaboration on it. My phone's starting to run out of power, so I'm going to try to go through these last questions as quickly as I can. Hopefully I catch them all before my phone dies. So hopefully there'll be a book here soon. He's just started working on it this last couple of weeks, so it's probably going to be a while still. But I'll let you know as it progresses. And we speak regularly about the topic and, working through particular dynamics. And he seems very excited about writing, compiling it. I think that's really awesome. I'm so glad for the help. Okay. Peace Journey, but the other channels are starting a speak of fear. The fear isn't good scent to have. One meeting Sabe. Yeah, they don't react well to that. They have a tendency to really push on you if you lose your calm. Okay, just say I listen to First Nations people, not the so-called experts. Yes. Yeah, the First Nations people definitely have more understanding of them because we've lived around them forever. We've had to. We've been side by side for thousands of years. So we've always had to be around each other. There's lots of stuff that we're taught not to believe in at school, including ourselves typically. Oh, Jesse. The reason why it's so important to bring forward the fact that the Bigfoot people are real is because they're being killed. They're being hunted. The genocide, Jackson's Native Removal Act has never ended for them. Yeah, some of them do have protection in some areas. But if any kind of interaction becomes tricky or somebody becomes offended on this side of the fence, they still pay the price. They still get shot. They still get killed, and they still get called a myth. That's murder with amnesty right there, especially if they happen to be human beings. I don't support that at all. So I'm sorry. If they can mate with us, they're human beings. If they are human beings, deserve the same respect. Oh yeah, it is the longest night of the year, isn't it? Oh heck yeah. I totally forgot about that. Thanks for the reminder, Priest Journey. That means, hey, we're going to get more light tomorrow. Hey, back towards spring. It's been really nice weather here this last 2-3 days. It's, though it's been chill, it's not been rainy or foggy or anything, and I'm hoping it holds through the weekend so I can do some filming. Okay, Jesse. Wish you happy holidays. Good mother. Steve Isdall sends his regards. He wants to speak to you. Oh, awesome. Shoot him my email or have him email me. I'll hook him up with my phone number. I'd love to talk with him as well. I'd be very interested in anything he has to say because I'm sure he's got some very interesting knowledge about all of these guys, especially being up in Alaska. There's probably far more activity up there than there is here. Yeah, military and ley lines. Yeah, there's a lot of that connection too. Okay, cosmic. Where major ley line crosses. Oh, okay. Let's talk to you guys. I haven't seen an insectoid, Matthew, but my grandmother had lore about what we call the ant people, and she also had lore about something she called the grasshopper man. So those two things looked very much, according to her, like a giant ant with a smaller behind than it's supposed to. You know, its abdomen was smaller. 6-ish to 8-ish feet in height, standing on its back legs, was something from ancient lore. Grasshopper was very similar, also similar height. Again, looked just like a big bug. Again, having a shorter abdomen so they could stand upright. But she claimed that both of those creatures came in starships. They came as part of the Star People. They were from somewhere else. They weren't from here originally, at least according to her lore. I don't know much more about them other than that because she said they would come here, they would take us or feed on us, and they would leave. They were predators, and they were bugs. I don't know, but that was her lore. You've had some really interesting experiences, Who. Sounds like you were really, really had them close to you. Okay, Who. I don't feel scared, just took it that you didn't like smoking. Thought immediately, Dogman, couldn't see anything, presumed cloaked, was within yards on Holiday Caravan site in Wales, UK. Yeah, I've heard there are quite a few cryptids actually in Great Britain. Yeah, well, Cosmic. The UK did kill off their coyotes and wolves because of the concerns about werewolves and whatnot, and all that bizarreness that went on in Europe and across Europe. They actually killed off most of their wolves across Europe because of the concepts of werewolves and the concepts of dark magic and witchcraft and stuff like that. Those animals got decimated. And probably the reason why they didn't get to the Dogman is because he's more wily. You're not going to notice him unless he lets you notice him. And he's also a heck of a lot bigger. And without, modern weaponry, it wouldn't have boded well to do much against them with, a cudgel or even a bow and arrow or a spear, especially if they move as quick as we know them to move today. Medieval ages, a horse couldn't even keep up with one to chase it down, so they wouldn't have had much recourse to do anything about them. Okay, Steve mentioned her on his channel a couple of weeks ago, which is how I found her. Oh, cool, Matthew. Then I emailed him to thank him for mentioning her. Huge awakenings for me from listening here. Oh, cool. I'm glad to hear that, Matthew. I'm glad the information is relatable and useful. That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to see that one either. I'd love to see what from what I understand, somebody had sent in emails to him mentioning my channel. I'd love to see that piece. I didn't have a chance to find it when he posted it. Okay, Matthew. He's the truth. Please, Mom, get a link up with him. Steve Isdell. We love you, Bo. You love you, Mom. Yeah, I really like Steve's channel. He's a no shit kind of guy. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I don't like BS. Oh, you're welcome, Deborah. I'm glad that you're finding the information useful, and hopefully you'll be able to apply it, utilize it, have some good interactions for yourself. Who military and religion draw from energy lines? Yeah, they do. Lots of corruption. Also very true. Good observation skills are who. Really? Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, definitely have somebody give me my email. I check it during the week. I don't have a chance to typically check my email on the weekends because I run it off a different phone. And I only have reception in town with that particular phone. I keep my business phone for work and for, conducting my other daily life. Wow. Sounds like you've had a lot of interactions, Matthew. That's the other thing I kind of like with the different locations in this particular valley that I can go into. Almost always you'll hear tapping in my videos. Sometimes you'll actually get to see a cryptid here and there. And sometimes you'll get to hear a call or voice speaking, which is a little different than what any other channel offers. Because I don't go in and do the typical thing. I don't try to scare the game away. I don't try to scare the critter away. I'm actually trying to, get some basis of communication going. And I think tomorrow, if everything works out, I'm going to go up and try to speak Japanese, see if I can get the other one that was up on top that's not the Ryujin, get the individual Gwantch to speak. It would be nice to be able to get some of that kind of conversational language recorded, if he'll let me. I'm hoping he'll do that. Deborah, oh wow, there was a raccoon skull, nice, clean, and white, sitting perfectly on a stump in the path in the middle of the woods. Was it a gift for me? Potentially. Yeah, very definitely potentially. Yeah, I'm just always riddled with allergies. Well, I'll let you know when it comes out, Deborah. I'm sure the fellow is quite enthusiastic, and the he's got a really keen mind as to what he wants to put in, and the things that we talked about. I think it'll be a good read. I think it'll be informational, and I was suggesting maybe throw a little bit of a lexicon in, so some of the more common kana and kanji that you can find, just out on a walk, you'll be able to identify it. You go, oh, okay, that means water, that means fire, etc. So I've got to do a little bit of work also, but he's going to be drawing a lot of the information off my YouTube stuff. He's been taking it for a while. What's his name? Tracker, Matthew. I believe I ran into a tall Dogman here in Indiana. I also saw what must have been an insectoid that was a decent amount taller. Oh my God. Maybe as tall as. No, I don't want to hear that. Are they that big? I don't know. I don't know how big the insectoids can get. My grandmother didn't say, and the way she was describing them, she didn't describe them as anything too incredibly massive. But I've also ran across dogmen. They're 12 foot tall. In this area, the shaman dogman was scraping around 12 foot. And there have been sightings up in Alaska, supposedly, of 18, 20 foot, 30 foot tall critters. But I haven't seen film of them yet. I've heard stories, and I've heard stories like that from native people that I'm aware go out into the deep woods of Alaska. So I wouldn't doubt their information in the least. I would assume they are correct. That's a little scary to think about. But at the same time, there's plenty of room on the planet. Yeah, well, as soon as he gets it outlined, and once we get some publications done, I'll definitely let you guys know where to get it. Oh, awesome, Peace Attorney. I'm glad you had considered adding a book from me to your research library. That'd be awesome in your library. I know who. I've had chronic lung issues for a lot of my life because I drowned when I was 12. I've had water in my lungs, so you never completely recover from that particular problem. Okay, Matthew, what I saw looked to me like a giant praying mantis with a human head. Oh, that's so bizarre. I've had a native friend of mine describe the same sort of thing, Matthew. Huh. Well, that's scary. When it rose up on its four back legs, it was easily looked into second story window on a Bible book. So, wow. Well, I'd love to see some film of that. Jesse, Mom Steve Isdall, How to Hunt, wants to speak in reference to the knowledge of what you have. Please, you'll find interesting, trust me. Oh, I know, yeah. I can maybe email him or, let him know to email me. And I'd be happy to talk to him. Matthew, I'll find the vid that Steve mentioned you in. My third visual contact was they cloaked something. It looked like a digital blurred cloud of flower petals that was about 7 foot wide and 15 foot tall. Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty good side. And that's a really, really accurate description of what some of their skills look like. No, yeah, my battery's about ready to clobber me good. Well, I'm at 2 hours and my battery's about to croak on my phone. Yeah. This last one, I've lived in Puerto Rico in the 90s, plenty of chupacabra attacks, and I've seen a lot. Oh, I bet you have, Jesse. All right, guys. Well, I gotta scoot because my battery's about croakered. Hopefully, I'll get some good stuff footage-wise in the next couple of days, and I'll be posting that. I might be able to do another live on Sunday. Hopefully that will work out. If so, it'll be probably around 5, 6-ish later in the evening for me, because I want to be out as much as I can during the day while it's still applicable, and get some more recordings for you guys. Oh, thank you, Deborah. And thank you for being here, everyone. I really appreciate you guys. You've been awesome for putting up with all of the trolls and all of the hate and the bullshit. Whatever. They got a box to live in. I don't care. I got an outdoors to go play in. That's where I'm at. That's what I like to do. And that's about the only way we're ever going to resolve any kind of mystery critter out there, is to be out there and find it. It's not going to come to you unless you can get it to talk to you. All right, everyone. I thank you and I appreciate you, and I'm really glad you have been hanging tough with me. It's been awesome. You guys have been great, and I'm glad you're so diligent in helping me out. I really appreciate you. It's been an interesting experience, and I found a lot of good people out there, and thank you for that. That's really good to know. And I'm so happy that you guys are here and hanging tough with me. I love it. Yeah, I'm sure you will, Cosmic. I'll take care of them deep state fake trolls when I can. No worries. I'm sure you will. Thank you so much, Cosmic. And yeah, that's kind of been the state of my life for 14 years, trying to get this information. I haven't had any major, knock on wood, issues so far with trying to broadcast this channel. I've had other sites taken down, stuff like that. So I'm glad this one's finally up for long enough to make a difference. Okay. Yeah, you guys have a great weekend too. And I'll see you guys probably on Sunday. And then I think you probably won't see me over the Christmas unless I do a Christmas Day special or something. Been thinking about that because I don't really have family left to have Christmas with. So who knows? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, you have a good night. Have a good morning. Have a great weekend. And if I don't get to yammer at you again, have a great holiday season. Thank you, everyone.